Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up.
Hello, Ben.
Hello, Jeremy. Happy Friday.
Well, happy Friday to you. Wet Friday. I don't know. It's raining where
Very
you
wet,
are.
isn't it? It's very wet in
Very
Scotland.
wet.
It's very wet in Scotland.
Anyway, I'll tell you about my weekend plans in a minute. But welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up, where we look at everything to do with the London market, technology change, innovation. This week, we're going to major a bit on culture and innovation. But as always, we'll start with the news. So, Ben, I saw this bit of news here. Press the right button. Which is Rob Powell is moving to WTW, which is a big move because we also noted earlier this year that Lucy Clark had moved there as well. So they're obviously doing something to attract the big guns into the list. I think we were quite surprised by the Lucy Clark move, but this also has surprised us.
Yeah, it's another big appointment. Rob, we know well. Lucy, we know quite well, a bit. But I think there are others too, and I'm sure we've not got them all, but I think the ones we know. And it does seem that WTW is sort of what you might say, getting back on its feet a little bit, making moves. Whereas actually it's been fairly quiet, I think, from what I can tell, what we can see in some of the data, which is good. It's good. Good for them. And good luck to Rob in the new job.
Yeah, absolutely. We both know Rob pretty well, so all the best to him. And we will, keep an eye on kind of how that develops and over the coming months and years and see how that impacts.
I think it's good. It's very good for the market. I'd say it's a good appointment, and there's still a lot of talent at Marsh, no doubt. So I think spread it around.
Defo. And let's keep with the London market news because we also saw this, which is the Howden rebrand, and they've got a cool new logo. And if you look on their website, you can see the press release, which I'll show here. They've also got a cool video, which is compulsory, I think, with any kind of rebrand. But I think what's interesting about this press release is there's two things. I think it's short, right? It's just a few paragraphs. This is it. And what it focuses on is the rationale for doing it. So getting all their business under one globally recognized brand. But then they quickly move on to focus on why they're different, their approach to people, and a different approach to insurance, and they want to see that. And I think that's really good. That they've got firstly it's clear comms, reassuring clients that nothing's going to change, but they're on this growth initiative, and I think it's a really clear rebrand with a purpose, and it focuses on the right things.
Well, yes, and I think it's exactly what you say, which is a very clear, pithy, articulate description of why they've done it. They said it's more than just a logo, which is really important because often people say, why did it cost so much to just get a change of color or a change of logo? I think the whole point of what Howden has been doing is to bring together a way of doing business and a way of working that stands out from the others. And that's what competition is about. And they do explain that here. And then, bringing together, this is not an easy task, from experience, pulling together a global stroke international brand all under one brand is not easy. But if you can pull it off, it just it makes you so much more than the sum of the parts.
Yeah.
And that's what I think they're doing. Plus, wow, they don't stop moving, do they? They are really dynamic.
They don't. And that's the next thing, which is kind of, you kind of go, this is all fine. It's words on a page, it's words on a website, but what does it really mean? You know, the proof's in the pudding, or the eating of the pudding. And this is almost, you know, proof of it. You know, they're putting money behind this kind of new venture to transform startups into underwriters, which is really interesting. And what I can glean from this is pretty fresh story. I think it came out a few hours ago, but they are taking kind of almost technology companies that have got something to offer to insurance, and then rather than taking that technology and bring it in-house, they are trying to develop those technology firms into managing general agents, which I think is a completely different approach to what we've seen before. And what they're trying to do there, as I've highlighted, is try to speed up innovation and kind of the sluggish pace that London provides new products to the market. So I think, you know, who knows whether it'll work or not, but I mean, you're talking about a rebrand and then backing it up with action. That's it's pretty impressive, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they're putting in 10 million, I think, from Howden, which is not a small amount of money, but it's not, again, it's not a, you know, it's the 500 million that catches the attention, because you need certainly decent levels of investment. But it's a really interesting idea. I mean, I think in a time when there isn't much investment coming the way of insurtechs and innovative entrepreneurial businesses in the market, this is great, good news, and good initiative. We must try and get Tom Hode on board to have a chat with us about it.
Yes, indeed, we'll try and do that. It would be great to find out more about that, and we will keep an eye on it for sure. Right, let's move things on. Ben, I've got this, of course.
Hey Ben, what's the word on the data stream?
What's the word on the data street, Ben?
Lloyd's of London, major hack of payment system could cost $3.5 trillion. So this is a bit of scenario modeling that Lloyd's has run around cyber attacks, and said that a hypothetical but plausible cyber attack would create widespread disruption to global business. So they're talking about hitting payments systems and companies, which would create a systemic loss, and would ripple through the whole of the globe. So they say that the 5-year economic impact could be 1.1 trillion in the US, 470 billion in China, and Japan 200 billion, and UK £10,000. No, not really.
I was like, what?
Our economy may be a bit down. We're not that far down, though. Yeah. So it's pretty scary stuff. And I tell you what it does. It raises the issue of is just how much can insurance cover this? And clearly, I think the Zurich chief exec has said that cyber attacks were pretty much uninsurable. I think that's quoted in this article. Lloyd's has excluded in cyber policies for state-backed attacks. So this is an area where everybody's getting just a little bit scared and nervous about what they're actually underwriting, unsurprisingly. And the discussion, as in a lot of other areas now, is around just where do you have, if you have it at all, a state backstop that comes in on this. So and that's, you know, kind of a very interesting discussion, because as soon as you bring in a state backstop, effectively you reduce the size of the insurance market. So if you take Florida, there's actually another interesting article about this, which was that once insurers back out of property, say in Florida, and then the state steps in, effectively you have made a whole region kind of not linked into the insurance market at all. So that is a shrinking market. So I think the insurance industry, just at a growth level, needs to think about all of this as well as at an underwriting level. And it is, as we know, it's a very sort of sensitive area where people have very different views. Some will not touch cyber with a barge pole, and some embrace it as a fantastic growth area of their business. Obviously, if these kind of numbers that they're throwing around here, I mean, rightly or wrongly, they are big numbers, and you can't see any insurer really getting near to that with a policy. So it's interesting area, and one which will no doubt keep on being discussed until, I guess, we get one of these hypothetical losses hitting, and then we'll find out.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? It's you kind of wonder what they're trying to achieve by putting out the press release. Really, are they trying to just draw people's attention to the fact that this would be massive?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I think Lloyd's itself must be somewhat, have some concern, I suppose, about this, and therefore I don't think this is just about saying, hey, here's an interesting thing of how big a cyber hack could be. I think this is to do with, are we underwriting responsibly? When's the state going to come into this? What protections are we setting up around our industry sector, if you like, if that's what we're talking about? So I think there will be some, this sort of work will have raised some worries. They were probably already there before, because I think we knew that there was this, but the numbers, the numbers very, very large. Not all of this, of course, would be insurable in any way, shape or form, but still, I think the other thing probably is it gives Lloyd's a position on the scale of some of these risks that are emerging in the world. And I think it's always sensible for any insurance market. I know Swiss Re does a lot of work on this kind of thing, but to say, look, are we covering like 50% of this or 0.001%? And I think this looks like we're somewhere nearer the latter than the former.
Yeah.
And then do we really even have any skin in the game on this thing if it's that big?
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely keep an eye on that story, because it's a massive growth area, but yeah, systemic risks are alive and kicking.
There's 9 billion premiums at the moment in cyber, something like that. So that's not touching that.
No.
Loss.
No.
Economic loss.
Good. Right. Very good. So I'll bring in a bit of light relief here. We both saw this. It was all over the place, wasn't it? Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon ends his DJ gigs due to media distraction. I just thought, that's quite funny. But he does some massive gigs.
Yeah. He's had some big hits as well. I mean, he's actually, irritatingly, given he works for Goldman Sachs and he's a CEO, he's had some big hits and made money out of it.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So it's not just thing. Anyway, he's hanging up his ear goggles because it's a distraction. Not that it's distracting him, but the media attention is potentially distracting him.
The truth of it is that Goldman's is not performing too well as well. So the fact is that his board is saying, "Excuse me, David, could you maybe come to the next board meeting because we've got some issues?"
Yeah, that's it.
But he did take a 30% pay cut.
Yeah.
Or an already vast salary.
Yeah. So, and a little digging around, and this isn't the only, executive with a kind of DJing sideline.
This goes Goes right to this strikes at the heart, doesn't it?
It does. Look, my own Phil Middleton, partner in crime here at Tin, renowned DJ for many years, got in the act. I didn't know that we had. It says here at the bottom we've got a page on our website dedicated to his DJing. Who knew? I didn't know. But there we are.
Well, I wonder who put that up.
Yeah, I wonder.
Train boy himself, I imagine.
Train boy. That's it. But also, look at this at the Lloyd's Lab.
Oh,
Ian Marchant, 5th birthday there. The Lloyd's Lab. There he is DJing. Top right.
in a DJ.
In a DJing. Yeah, absolute privilege to spin the tunes and be part of the team on this special occasion. A quick look into his profile. No mention of DJing, so I updated it for him by just writing DJ. Come on,
he's a 6 Sigma DJ, black belt DJ, because that'd be better than Phil.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I don't know what
we'd have to have a DJ off or whatever you call it.
We could, yeah. We could get them to do a bit for the show. A bit of
yeah, the problem is we have rights issues with. I know it starts to get technical.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's annoying. But anyway, there you go. Superstar DJs all over the shop in insurance and investment banking. Ben, you might have seen on LinkedIn that I've made you a new jingle.
Oh, I did see that. Yes, I'm really looking forward to that.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Brace yourself, viewers.
News from the regions.
Production.
I feel like it needed something at the end on top. Anyway, it's fine. It's really good. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, it's good. It does what it says on the tin.
It does, which what we're renowned for. Anyway,
was that a train boy doing that?
No, it wasn't. It was Max. Do you want to hear it again?
Yeah.
News from the regions.
Oh, I thought I recognised it. Yeah, there you go. Nice.
Maximilian. So there we go. Anyway, news from the regions, Ben.
Yeah, news from the regions. So I've been travelling the UK again with Bieber on their tour of the regions. And I was in Leicester on Wednesday and Birmingham yesterday. 2 interesting sessions with about maybe 40 to 50 brokers at the first, maybe more, 50 to 60 at the second, maybe more than that. You can see some of the people there. Graham Trudgill, he keeps saying he's the new CEO, but he's been there for quite a while now. I'm not going to call him that anymore. It's the CEO. And also at the bottom there, David Sparks, who's the regulatory, and they do quite a lot of the talk, the updating around this, and then we get feedback, and I do a short presentation about the big survey that we do. So what was the kind of talk? I mean, out in the regions, the talk is a lot about government and regulation because that is a burden. Interestingly, Graham Trudgill was saying that there's evidence that shows that there is 4 times more burden of regulation, cost of regulation in the UK compared with almost any other country, developed country. So that is a big issue for the poor brokers. And actually, some of this stuff has come from the cladding issue, the commissions issue around that. So that is going to create more burden. Bieber's trying to help with this, with providing all sorts of frameworks. But that is when you listen and talk to the brokers, you can see and feel just how much extra work that is not actually broking that they have to do these days. And I have to agree, it's way too much. It's crazy. And the other thing is they say there's a kind of 2-track thing almost out of the FCA, really, which is this, the cost of everything, as someone said it yesterday, looking at pricing and everything, really, really kind of quite kind of tick boxy type stuff where you have to fill in masses and masses of forms to show you've done the right thing, versus consumer duty, which we've talked about, which is a kind of more forward looking. So that the feeling is that there are groups of people, particularly in the FCA, whose success in their jobs, if you like, even their remuneration maybe, is based on finding fault with an industry which has not done anything particularly wrong, really. I mean, cladding, maybe there's a bit of an issue there, but that is related to one specific issue in the market, not the whole insurance market. So, and I think they're also saying that they feel there's a gap between the regulator and the government. The government's very supportive of competitiveness and wanting to see growth in the sector, whereas the feeling is a bit that the regulator is disconnected from that and feels, and is strangling productivity. So it's interesting, there's a real kind of tension around all of that, actually, and very palpable when you're in the rooms with people. And more in the sort of space that I operate in, I asked the audience yesterday about some of the issues that they've got, which was reflected in the survey. But claims service is a big issue at the moment for every broker that we speak to virtually. So I think that's an area that has to be looked at. And
that was an area that came up at London Market Claims as well, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. It has come up a lot, and it's coming up everywhere. Not just it's coming up in surveys, it's coming up in conversations, but it's quite a raw issue. It's not. Brokers are saying, look, okay, underwriting service may not be that great, but when your claim service is not good, there's a problem. So that's pretty important, I think, and we're going to be focusing on that a bit more. And I think some of the other areas, I think, conversations really with some of the MGAs, what they're trying to do, how they're trying to deliver good service, and can they get that recognised. So some of the things I think that we talk about a lot, really, which is where's the industry going in the future, and it makes you think a lot about the structures and the types of organisations that we've got that are serving ultimately the customer. And clearly, if you go into the UK market, SME market, then there are some very, very big players, big institutions that provide a lot of capital into the market. But are they agile, flexible? Well, definitely not always. And some of these MGAs, they're very ambitious and they've got good people I've met seem very good and they're very keen on service, and that's what they're defined by. So it's interesting when you think of whether that will start to whether things will start to shift towards more of those structures and actually just have more insurers being more capital providers. I'm sure the Alliances of this world will say that's not what we want to do. We want to do everything. But it's an interesting thought, really, as to where the industry goes forward from here.
Yeah. Interesting. That kind of tension between kind of the government and the kind of regulatory stance, was there a feeling that that everything's kind of bogged down until we have an election, or was progress being made to try and
they are making? Well, the big issue they've had is the cladding issue and potentially commissions being banned, which would have hit the whole market, not just the SME market.
Yeah,
that has gone away now, and it's now more about they've shoved in a lot of work that has to be done by the brokers to show transparency. So that's kind of progress in one sense, although it was more defensive. I think it is a bit of a battle. I mean, I think they are making progress. I think the bigger issue is, can we get this alignment between the regulator and the government, who wants to see growth in the insurance sector and wants competitiveness? And I know the LMG and others, Labour as well, have campaigned on this with politicians. My sense is that, yes, there is a kind of waiting for the election. Bieber has been up to the main political conferences and is talking to both the shadow cabinet leaders as well as the current leaders. So I think obviously they've got to hedge their bets both ways. But I'm not so sure that there's that much difference necessarily between the two major parties on it. I think there is a sense that insurance is a sector they want to support, and they want to see growth, and they want to see kind of investment, if you like. And so there's areas there that more detailed, but they were touched on yesterday, which could be important. There's a lot of red tape, really. That's one of the things you just hear that what they could do with is getting rid of a lot of that, making things much easier, and that leads to bad consequences on underinsurance and risks not being written and so on and so forth. So you really feel it is a bit glued up in some ways. But the politicians aren't causing that, if you see what I mean. That's the point. They might want that to change.
Definitely. Where's next on the roadshow?
Manchester and Merseyside, Liverpool next week.
Great.
Yeah. So that's going to be quite good. Yeah, I'm going to the Imperial War Museum in Manchester, and then
that is fantastic.
Yeah, great.
It's brilliant. So
I'll be there. So that's Thursday, I think, and then and Liverpool can't remember. I'm somewhere interesting in Liverpool.
Yeah, good.
I'm going further and further away from you each time.
yeah. Although it feels closer and closer because we're both from up north.
That's right. Back to my yes.
So I was when we talk about Manchester, Liverpool, and up there, I feel quite connected to it.
Back to my roots. That's what we need.
Back to the roots. Yeah. We'll come back to Birmingham and car parks later because that's quite interesting. But I said at the top of the show that we were going to talk a little bit about culture, and this is off the back of a breakfast briefing that I ran earlier this week, where the focus of the discussion was leveraging data analytics in commercial lines. One of the hot topics of the moment, and something I'm very interested in. We ran, as we always do, a little questionnaire for the group beforehand. I'm not going to show all the results because it's that's what the membership's all for, but I thought I'd give you a snapshot of what the key challenges were that people were interested in discussing, and it was about the quality of data, legacy, technology, platforms, and kind of data accuracy were some of the key themes or challenges that they saw that they wanted to discuss at the breakfast. What was really interesting is that on the day, we did touch some of those topics, but really quickly we got into the cultural challenges of effectively delivering change within organizations. And, if the change happens to be a technology change or a data and analytics change, it doesn't really matter. Actually, what people were talking about was just the inertia, cultural inertia, or resistance to change, or risk-averse nature of their organizations, which meant that some of the innovations that we talked about that happen at Howden were very difficult to achieve in other organizations. And the conversation very quickly talked about kind of a fear of understanding of the technology and what was being put in. So from people doing their existing jobs, there was a fear that eventually it might take over their roles or completely change what they were doing, and that it was a fear thing. And also, if you take senior management, there was a fear that because they didn't understand the technology, there was a fear that they would be found out, that they should know everything about the latest bit of tech. Where actually, if you're building teams to transform your organization, you bring in different people with different expertise, and not expect one person or one director or one chief operating officer or whatever it is to have all the answers. It's a team pulling together, kind of almost like a transformation management office that you create, where you bring in these different opinions and areas of expertise in order to drive the change forward. So it was a fascinating discussion that we had. And I'll just finish off by, before you come in, Ben, but one of the young guns in the room, one of the hot shots, just said, and this isn't quoted, but essentially said, what we need to do is talk to the underwriters and just tell them what this piece of data does. And really, they are the salespeople of the organization, so they should get this. And there was a big intake of breath, and somebody said, "Oh, don't call underwriters salespeople." And actually, that then sparked a really interesting discussion, because people were saying that is exactly the conversation you need to have in your organization to bring underwriters into the change and say, look, this is how we see insurance in the future. This is how we see underwriter role changing, and this is how we're going to enable you to be better at your role using this tech data or whatever it is. So it was a fascinating discussion around culture and change, I suppose.
And what you say doesn't really surprise me. I suppose what is a bit frustrating is that this sort of thing has been in place for probably the last 5 or 6 or maybe even longer years, where we've seen this change coming, but it's not quite arrived.
Yeah.
And I think that my sense of it is that everybody other than the underwriters thinks it's all going to change, but you don't want to really mention that to the underwriters, because you might, as one person once put it, frighten the sheep. And that sounds a bit rude and disparaging, but I think it's because the change that will come is probably quite clear, which is you will have a lot of underwriters who are able to auto quote standard risks, trade them, online, and most of that, the bulk of their work in terms of the standard business as usual may be done by 9 o'clock in the morning, or 2 minutes after 9 o'clock. So the question then is, what do you do for the rest of the day? And of course, that does take you into that sales or business development territory, which is, what are the new products? How can you make this work? How can you build the relationships to get those projects off the ground and get buy-in and all those sorts of things? Now, not all underwriters are those sorts of people. They are sometimes what we might call quite technical, or they are very, very specialists with particular books of business that they've had for years. The future is not going to be like that, I don't think, according to what people believe, which it will be a much more fluid environment, more generalist, as Caroline Bedford would talk about, in which you have technology-enabled underwriters doing all sorts of different lines of business as the market evolves and changes and new products come in. So I could therefore understand, if you go back to this, if you like, this inertia or resistance to change, is it's very hard to explain why you might be doing one small thing when you don't give people the bigger picture of what's going on. I can understand. I don't necessarily think they're, because they're not fools, obviously. I think it's more that you go, well, but where is this taking us? Where are we going? And where's the next 2 years? Where am I going to be in, a little while? And I think that's not explained, because actually, senior people don't yet know the timing of all of that. They don't really know when that's going to happen and how it will happen. I think the only thing they do know is that once the technology does start to bite around that commoditized stuff, then you will be on a cliff edge around the change. It will be very rapid. It could be very rapid. So you've suddenly got fewer, more salesy, business developer, perhaps better paid even underwriters, kind of rainmakers almost for the business. And then you've got a lot of perhaps more younger junior people who do work on the commoditized stuff, but also start to work their way up into these sales roles as they become more developed, so it's maybe a bit like audit, right? Because if you look at the audit market, that's how that went, which was that auditors who could sell were transferred into consultancy or advisory work, which was much more profitable for those organizations. And I could see something very similar happening in insurance, because the work that brokers do at the top end and underwriters, indeed, I think collaboratively, is like advisory work, really.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting. And I think there's one other point that was made, which was kind of around expectation management, I suppose, around these, whatever it is, you name it. But if you have some kind of technology that comes in, there is an expectation that it's going to be 100% working from the moment you switch it on. And if it isn't 100% working, then it just doesn't work, right? And I think there is quite a big job to do in order to bring people, computers just don't work. They've got time they need time to bed in and everything else.
And I think you've got to sell the benefits, and people have got to understand the benefits of using it, because nothing I've ever seen in any business I've ever worked in, if the technology is not seen as a benefit, people will just not use it. It's the easiest thing to do, is just don't turn it on. And I think that's partly that lies at the heart of the people who do the transformation, the changes and the technology changes, because they have got to somehow get these organizations to be engaged. I don't mean buy in, I hate that phrase. I mean engaged with it, such that when that piece of technology comes along, the person using it or the people using it can see how it will be a useful tool for helping them to do better. But those benefits vary. I mean, they can be really different. And another point I think that we talked about yesterday when we were talking about this piece was something that John Muir said on our show probably a year ago, really, or maybe longer, was about, when he was a broker, he saw no reason to change because his life was very good and he was earning good money and being successful. So he saw no reason to embrace technology until he got into that area where he saw the advantages strategically. But then the question was, how do you get people on board? And I think that's a really, really important point, is what's the incentive, if you like, to adopt?
Yeah, definitely. Good. Right. Interesting discussion. And I think we will be carrying that on as well. So before we go, Ben, we're going to be looking at spurious awards, I think. And
not spurious necessarily. They could be very good. This one's a good one.
Is it?
Well, see what people think.
Go on then. So you were in Birmingham, as you said, and
I had the privilege, as that chap said about doing the DJing at Lloyd's Lab, the privilege of being in the car park of the year yesterday in Birmingham.
Wow!
And it's as awarded by the car park awards 2022.
Wow.
Now, I didn't know there was a car park of the year awards until I saw that. But if anybody wants to know, it's the B4 car park in Birmingham near Colmore Row. And is it good?
I haven't been there. You have. I mean, when you drove in, did you go, this is exceptional?
I didn't, because I didn't know at that time it was the winner of the car park of the year awards. But it was ticketless for one. But that makes me nervous, ticketless. But
yeah.
Anyway. So I mean, I never kind of think the barrier is going to open when I go out, but
no,
it was ticketless. It actually was quite well done. I think the stairs, which are usually horror stories in car parks, was clean, pleasant. It was quite modern. The lifts all worked. They had like glass lifts, like Charlie and the Chocolate. The great glass elevator.
Yeah.
You've seen that?
Got it.
And not quite as good as that, but they were. Yeah, there was something quite nice about it. It felt a good experience, I'd say. I'm not sure. I'm comparing it to NCPs, which are a bit poor.
Yeah, I see. I think we need to bring in the international element, because I experienced some German and Belgium car parks, and man, they are another level.
Yeah, I don't think this is an international award. It was a UK only.
Yeah. See, I think that's the failing of this award. It needs to be international if it's got to be taken seriously.
It's a bit. I don't think it was regional either, because you do get sometimes Indian restaurants, don't you, which have won the South Birmingham Indian Restaurant of the Year.
Yes.
It seems narrow to me, that.
It's quite narrow on this street.
In terms of the competition, it could be the Dudley Curry House of the Year. So no, I think this is national awards, but I think what we should do is have a look at this and see what the competition was.
Yep.
And then maybe we could look at some other interesting awards and see if they could be added to the panoply of awards that already exist in the insurance market.
Definitely. So if you've got any suggestions, pop them in the comments on LinkedIn. We'll be doing thorough research into whatever awards they are, and we'll be giving you a bit of a précis and an overview.
It's a big industry, isn't it? Awards, and it's good. We could be at the forefront of where it's going.
Yes, we've often talked about. Well, we do, don't we? We have our little awards thing.
We do little awards. Yeah, we do our own. I mean, we know the score here. I'm not saying we're expert. I'm not saying we're expert, but we're pretty good. We've been through the process.
Yeah.
You announced somebody before the winner before they'd actually.
That wasn't me. That was the clicker. It malfunctioned.
Oh yeah, malfunctioning clicker. Yeah.
That was a disaster.
I didn't want to remind you of that, but no, that's fine. No, I did. Yeah, it'd be great. Insurance awards or non-insurance awards. Yeah, we'll look at some as well. I'm sure we'll find a lot of innovation.
We will. That's all to look forward to. But what are you doing this weekend, Ben?
I'm going to house hunting again. Oh, a bit of climbing, house hunting, climbing. Not at the same time.
No. Imagine climbing up a house through the window.
Yeah. Why don't you come through the front door like everybody else?
Yeah. Brilliant. Oh, you might get wet, so take your umbrella.
Yeah, no, I'm expecting to get wet, but that's fine. Yeah. What about you?
I'm going to Wales on a walking holiday, and my knee's packed up, which means I can't walk, and the weather over there is supposed to be horrendous. So we're really looking forward to it. Should be good. Very good. Right, we'll be back next week, folks. Have a good weekend, and see you next Friday.
Enjoy. Goodbye.